You are never going to feel completely ready. It ain't no thing. I hear this term uttered quite often. I am just not ready yet. Sometimes I inquire more, genuinely curious about what being ready means to this person. And sometimes I let it go, but with a touch of sadness that this person is caging them in a false belief that they need to feel ready before making the leap. I honestly believe that the whole concept of being ready needs to be thrown in the trash, at least in context of personal and spiritual growth, that is. I'll give a client an out of her comfort zone exercise, and she'll look at me with an expression like, "Are you sure I'm ready for that?" "Yes, yes you are. Otherwise I wouldn't have given it to you." I'll have women message me or email me so often saying that they really want to experience a coaching program of mine. They really want to work with me, but they just aren't quite ready right now. The timing isn't right. The money isn't there. The space hasn't been created. The schedule is too busy. Which sometimes, sure, this could be accurate. There are times to absolutely honor divine timing, intuition, and circumstance. I totally get that. However, more often than not, the whole concept of not being ready is an illusion of the ego. Your mind has created this false idea. You've chosen it, believe it, and it's keeping you stuck, playing small, not really stepping into your power. What if I can't handle it? What if it's too much? What if I fail? How about we expand the perspective? What if, even if you don't fully feel it, you actually are ready? What if you allow the money to come to you? What if you create the space? What if you take the leap? What if you allow the safety net to appear? What if you trust yourself? What if you trust in the universe? What if you can handle it? What if you can more than handle it? What if you actually are ready? Then what? Then what would you choose? Then what would you say yes to today? What would you jump into with full commitment, a touch of nervousness, and a whole lot of trust? And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a holistic life coach, nutritional therapy practitioner. Today's guest is Shannon Keating. Shannon, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thank you, Quentin. I'm super excited to be here, and that was really, really cool hearing you read a post of mine, so thank you.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how I like to kick things off, is just a little bit of a reading, just to kind of introduce my guests. A lot of my guests have a gift of writing, and I really enjoy writing, so I think that's a great way to kind of kick things off for the podcast. So, Shannon, we're going to jump right into a warm-up, and the first question that I have for you today is, how do you start your day, and is there a specific morning routine that you have?
Yes. Oh, there absolutely is. I'll tell you about my latest morning routine, and I'm really into it. So, all right, so let's see. What do? I wake up. I'm just going to get right, I'm going to give you detail by detail, step by step.
I love it.
I wake up, and one of the first things I do as soon as I'm conscious is I literally give myself a hug.
Okay. And
I just say some beautiful, positive self-talk to myself. Kind of like, how you would want to greet someone in the morning. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, what's going on today? I love you. I do that to myself. And so, I'm just laying in bed, and it's just like, hey, girl, good morning. All right, you're a little tired? Okay, cool. I still love you. Like, things like that, right? Depending on the morning. Mm-hmm. I do that. And then I've got two... In my coaching, I do a lot of audio tracks for my clients. Okay. And so there are different affirmations, different phrases, different beliefs that are really linked to them uniquely and individually. And so I create those for myself too. And so I've got one audio track themed around gratitude. And so in this, I wrote it all out in a journal entry, and it's all of the beautiful things that I can be grateful for every single day that I have right now and that I'm creating. And so I shared that with myself, and I wrote, I'm so grateful that I have a safe home to live in. I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for myself. I'm so grateful. I threw all sorts of things in there. I'm so grateful for cold showers. I'm so grateful for dancing, for yoga, just everything I had in that moment. And so I put that in right away. and I listen to that one, or I have another audio track that's a little bit more, a little bit different, and I'll listen to that one. But typically I listen to my gratitude audio track, and it's just, to me, I just like starting my day that way. So I put that in, and I get out of bed, and I just like, I put my robe on, I put my phone in my pocket, my phone's still on airplane mode, of course, and I'm just listening to the audio track on repeat over and over again as I kind of flow into my day. And that's going to this is funny, I'm walking everyone through my morning. So then I go into the kitchen and I make myself my water, and I do warm water with lemon and sea salt. As I'm making that, I'm heating up the water. I do coconut oil pulling. So, have you heard of coconut oil pulling?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so it's like an ancient Ayurvedic practice of like swishing coconut oil in your mouth.
Okay, yeah.
And so the coconut oil basically pulls like fat soluble like stains and decay and toxins on your teeth, and it pulls them into the oil, and then you basically like spit out the oil, you swish out your mouth, and it's like a way to cleanse your mouth. Super holistic.
Cool.
So I do that, and so I do my oil pulling while my water's heating up, and then I go back into my room, and I'll just do like an energetic cleansing of my room. Again, this is full on.
No, it's cool. It's beautiful. I love it.
Okay.
It's good.
Then I'll do an energetic cleansing of my room and myself, and so whether it's like an essential oil, saging, Palo Santo, whatever I'm like called to that morning, I'll just do an energetic cleansing of my space. I'll make my bed, go back into the kitchen. By that time, my water's ready. Get my water all ready. Spit out my oil. I do another, just like either I do like a pure mouthwash, or I just do like warm sea salt water, just like rinse out my mouth. Start drinking water, get into my room, and at that point, that's when I do my meditation practice. So then I sit there before meditation. What I've been doing lately is I apply my essential oils intuitively that morning, and so I'll pick from my different oils based on what I'm working on, and I'll do some oils on my heart center, and I'll do certain oils like on my spine and on my feet. And so I just do coconut oil, and I select whichever ones I need that morning, whether it's one around like just like presence or groundedness, or one to like peppermint to like energize and uplift me if I'm feeling kind of tired, or there's one that I'm just using right now called spikenard that's all about gratitude. So I've been using that one lately, and essentially I rub on my heart, on my spine, on my feet, and then I just like start my meditation practice with some aromatherapy, so kind of cupping my hands around my mouth and my nose and breathing. And then I go into my meditation practice. And right now I'm doing a mindfulness, mantra-based manifestation meditation practice. It's about 25 minutes morning and afternoon, so I flow into that. Once I'm done my meditation, I just finish with gratitude. So it's as simple as like, okay, I'm in this present moment, and I sit there and I just say thank you. And I think that's one of my favorite mantras is just fucking thank you. So I say, oh, can I curse?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay,
you're good.
I'm sorry.
No, so you're fine. You're fine.
So I say like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just sit there, thank you, thank you, thank you. And like, to me, I don't have to like be like, oh, I'm thank you this, thank you that, thank you that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's just like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because again, it's like energetically weaving that message of like, there's always something to be grateful for. And you can always say thank you. And there's so much power in those two words. And it feels good. It feels good to sit there and just say thank you. And so I do that. And then I flow into the last part of my routine, which is my dancing, my singing, my music, and my dry brushing, and my hot shower, cold shower, flow into my morning.
Cool. So I got a few questions here. So first of all, when you are not like where you normally live, let's say you're traveling. Yeah. Okay. How do you adjust, or do you adjust at all that morning routine?
A little bit, yeah. So absolutely. I mean, the thing is, like, if I'm at my parents' home or a friend's place or traveling, like I'm not always able to do like it to the degree as which I desire, right? So like, for example, when I'm home, my mom has a rule where I cannot burn white sage in the house. So awesome. I can't do that there because she hates the smell of it. She's like, that stinks up my whole house. And I'm like, it's cleansing, Mom. But I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, that's fine, Mom. So I can use, she's actually buying me, it's funny, we're going on the beach in a few weeks, and she was like, Shannon, you know the rule is no sage in my house. Do you want me to buy you like a room clearing spray? And I was like, as long as it's non-toxic, Mom, sure.
That's awesome.
So,
good,
like things like that, I adjust, right? And if I can't blast my music because I'm somewhere, like I'll put headphones in. I won't sing out loud. Like, if I don't have the flexibility to do certain things, I absolutely adjust. But like, there are certain elements of my routine, like my meditation practice, that are just non-negotiables. I will always do them.
Right, absolutely.
It's like a self-love commitment.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Okay, so when you are not in your like home environment and you can't do your morning routine and your morning practices like full on, does that cause a little bit of like anxiety for you or not per se?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't. Honestly, as long as I can drink my water and I can meditate and maybe I can do just something that involves nature. So whether that's getting outside, using an essential oil, something that has like a nature element in it just to ground me in my body, I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And, okay, so one other thing. Now, like, you said you have some audio tracks and then you like to give those also out to your clients in regards to like gratitude and stuff. What does that do for you? Like, I mean, just kind of like listening to something, because you start your day off right away with like self-talk, like positive self-talk, but then you also said you have some audio tracks where it's like about gratitude. So is it your voice or is it somebody else's voice with those audio tracks?
It's mine.
Okay, it's yours. So like, what's the reasoning behind that? Because you're already like doing that inner self-talk or whatever. So what's the reasoning or the point behind then you having your voice on a recorded audio kind of doing the same thing? Yeah,
so there's a couple different reasons why. So one is, right, we can go on YouTube, right? And we can find like affirmations for abundance.
Yeah,
I'm sure we all have Googled that or Googled affirmations for self-confidence or something, right?
Yep.
And you find a track and you can listen to them. And those are great, but I feel as though, one, they don't work for people because they aren't customized to them, and sometimes the language and the words and the verbiage isn't like, it doesn't land for that person's soul and that person's spirit. And so what I just started to do, and also I think we can also get in these conditioned patterns of certain thoughts or certain energetic ways of being that aren't serving us.
Right.
And so, for example, something I really caught myself in was just not connecting to gratitude. I was not grateful for what I had. I was always wanting more, and I wasn't content and I wasn't grateful. And I remember I had an ex-partner and he would tell me like, Shannon, like, because for me it was like at the beginning of my business, I was like, I got a client and then I was like, okay, but I need another one. And he was like, Shannon, you just got a fucking client.
Right.
Like, be grateful for that. And he's like, or like my program or whatever, I would try to fill a program and I have 3 women. I'm like, okay, but I wanted 8 or something like this. Like, I did this a lot a few years ago. And he'd be like, but Shannon, 3 women want to work with you.
Right.
And it just wasn't landing for me. And then, like, if I were to be perfectly honest, like, I hadn't conditioned myself to be so grateful and thankful for everything that was showing up for me. It was like I was seeking more numbers or more or whatever. And so I caught that about myself, and I realized that a lot of those patterns, it's just conditioning. It's
Absolutely.
just literally conditioning that we grew up with and that now is locked into our subconscious mind and our way of being. And so what I really realized was, okay, I learned how to reprogram your subconscious mind. And if you want to, are you familiar with like subconscious mind versus conscious mind? A little bit, sort of.
Well, I mean, no. Why don't you explain it?
Okay.
Explain it, please.
So basically, we've got these 2, I guess you could say, layers to your consciousness.
Right.
And your subconscious, if you could, like the beautiful analogy everyone gives is like an iceberg analogy, where you see the tip, but then 95% of the iceberg is under the water. You don't see it. And that's the same way you can relate imagery to the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. And so the subconscious mind is basically this part of your brain and your mind and your conditioning that's developed when you're a kid. So when you're in the womb of your mom, all the way up until you're about maybe 7 years old is like the max amount of conditioning of your mind.
Right.
And so that's where you learn your behaviors, you learn your patterns, you have certain beliefs about yourself, about the world, about relationships, about money, about your body, about career, about happiness, about health, about everything.
Yep.
You're just looking around you, you're looking at your parents, you're looking at teachers, which is why being a teacher is, again, so important.
Absolutely.
You're looking at these people around you to be like, okay, I'm this new being in this world. what do I believe? What do I do? What do I think about the world and myself? That's your subconscious mind. And then you've got your conscious mind that starts to develop more and more as you get older and older and older. And that's what we're consciously using to create as humans. Like, okay, what do we want now? We dream, we think, we desire. And so you're always like, for me, it's like I wanted gratitude, but there was something in my subconscious mind that wasn't conditioned around being grateful and content. Right. It was like I was programmed to always want more. And so the thing is, our subconscious minds, right, the part that I talk about underneath the iceberg, has more power than our conscious mind. Right. Our conscious mind is so damn powerful. It is, right? We can create whatever we want. Like your beautiful vision for this school, it's like you can create that. Right. But if you really want to manifest it and get your, like, both parts of your mind on board, you've got to look at the subconscious programming too and get that on board with what you want to create and believe about yourself and your life. Right. So with that being said, with these programs, they work, or these not programs, these audios work at reprogramming your subconscious mind and planting positive affirmations, beliefs, experiences, imagery into your subconscious through these certain phrases and through repetition of those phrases. And so that's a lot of the work I do with women. It's like, okay, cool. How exactly do you want to feel about your body? How do you want to feel in your relationship with money? How do you want to feel about yourself? How do you want to feel about trust and spirituality and support in your life? And so then we'll create different, or like, what's the vision you want for your life? And so then we basically use these audios to fuel these positive beliefs and programming into the subconscious, so that over time, with repetition in the background as an audio of these new words and beliefs, your subconscious starts to almost like latch onto it and get it on board. And then your conscious and your day-to-day, it's like, oh my gosh, these things are happening for me a lot more effortless because I'm not trying to willpower my way into it, because willpower will not work. It's finite. Right? But if your belief is there and your belief is strong, your solid belief that's in you is going to carry you forward and move you forward a lot more gracefully. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
Cool.
No, for me, it does, because it's an area that I'm learning more about and seeing it come to fruition in my life. So, all right. So I want to kind of get through the warm up before we continue to dive deeper into kind of some of that stuff, because I wrote some things down that I want to continue to touch on, because I think what you just talked about, like with the conscious mind and the subconscious, like it's very powerful. And I think it's very important for people to have some sort of understanding about it, even though they might be listening to this like, I don't really know anything about that, but at least they can continue to like explore it and find more out about it. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
So before we kind of dive back into that, I want to just ask, and let's just limit it to one, okay? So is there a favorite book that you have, or a book that you like to gift often? Because I'm sure you probably have a handful that you enjoy or have got value from over the years. Okay,
so one of my favorites, Conversations with God. Okay. By Neil Donald Walsh.
Cool. And just give a little bit of a context and why that book is so enjoyable for you, if you don't mind.
It's just, so I grew up Catholic. Yeah. And so I don't want to offend anyone, but as I grew in maturity, Catholicism just didn't really resonate or land with me anymore. Yep. But the concept of God did. And so this book just landed in a way that it was like, this makes sense and this feels good. And it's a very empowering read, all about how it boils it down to like your thoughts and your beliefs and your energy are what you're creating your life with. And like, it just took away that like guilt or judgment that I grew up with, and it just was like, no, you are the creator of your life. You're so divinely supported. You have choice. You have autonomy. And it just like step by step walked you through that unconditionally loving example of like what I now feel God is.
Okay, cool. Very cool. So I think you kind of mentioned something in regards to like a favorite quote earlier. So if it's that one, or if there's another one or mantra, if you don't mind sharing like your favorite quote or mantra, Shannon.
Just one? Okay.
You can share a couple. You already shared one earlier.
I'll share a couple. So they'll be short. Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. Just thank you, because with the
F word in there or not?
No. just those. Okay. Sometimes just those two, and I encourage people to use that every single day throughout the day. And even like, okay, so for example, I'll show you a perfect example how I did it. When you were sitting here and you were reading my Instagram post, I was just like, wow. And so I literally just sat and I was just like, thank you, because it was really awesome for me, right, to hear you just share it in like your voice, and it was a really cool experience. And so it's just showing gratitude for like, wow, thank you that I got to be in this moment, hearing you say that like I can hear the power in those words, that it means something to me, that it feels good, whatever. Right. Thank you. Every time someone reaches out to me, or I get a new client who feels super aligned, thank you. Anytime like something happens, it's like, thank you. It could be big, it could be small. Just thank you, I think, is very powerful.
Absolutely.
And then the other one, which I think so many people are familiar with, is Gandhi's "Be the change you wish to see in the world."
Yep, that's a very powerful
It's
one.
easy to come back to, and it's powerful. Yeah.
And I, because you've brought up those two words, thank you, several times already, I just want to speak to that, because as a teacher, like I grew up in a home where there were certain expectations of like our language. Like if we wanted something, we were expected to say please.
Oh yeah.
And then if we got it, or it was given to us, however you want to say that or word that, we were expected to say thank you. So like they're called like manners, you know what I mean? Well, over the years, like just living life and now being a school teacher, I very rarely hear anybody, adults or kids, saying please or thank you. So I was conditioned, and I was brought up in a home and environment where we were supposed to talk a certain way, and there was those manners. So I've realized over the years, like I stopped saying please and thank you, but I really feel like I know that there's power in words, and I take like the words that I speak very seriously. I'm very conscious about like what's coming out of my mouth and how I word things, and when I'm around certain people, I want to be respectful of their beliefs and all that type of stuff. Okay, so I'm very conscious of my words, and I know the power of words. So as a teacher, I kind of noticed myself, like, if a student was getting in trouble, like I just kind of like get after him or whatever, and doing my normal thing. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start asking a student, like if a student is, let's say they're talking when I'm talking, and they're interrupting me and they're being disrespectful, I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna put in please, and I'm gonna put in thank you. So, Johnny, would you please stop talking while I'm talking? And then I say right after that, thank you. And that kind of sets the expectation that for them, that like I'm expecting them that they're going to do it. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I started incorporating please and thank you. And this might sound crazy to people, but I've shared it before on the podcast because I saw the results in those three words. Because there's just something about those words. They're just, I don't know if they're softer, more gentler words, but there's just like, they're kind. They're kind words. You know what I mean? So like I inserted please, I inserted thank you into my classroom, and just those three words, I saw some changes in my students and how they responded to me and how I was responding to them, because those words, they are kinder, they are softer words. So sometimes I can be a little maybe aggressive. So that would, when those words came out of my mouth, they kind of like something probably subconsciously just kind of like created just a little bit more softness in my mind and in my heart towards the situation where I was kind of frustrated. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because, I mean, you're talking about thank you, and obviously I'm talking about please, but then also thank you. So just those three words I've seen using those in my life in regards to kids and just in everyday life, I've seen a lot of value in that. So just kind of going off what you're saying, I just want to agree with that and share that with the listener. So, all right. So Shannon, is there a favorite or most listened to podcast that you have?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with the Melissa Ambrosini show.
Okay.
I love her. She's an Australian woman, just super in alignment with a lot of the work I do, and I love her podcast.
Okay, cool. Now, like, is it kind of like a holistic coach type of thing like you're involved in, or what is the gist of it?
Yeah, so I think her themes, I mean, she talks a lot about self-love. She talks a lot about health, happiness, spirituality. Okay. Yeah, just holistic in nature, though.
Cool. All right, so I want to go back to just kind of like the topic of the conditioned patterns, kind of like, and just maybe dig a little bit deeper in regards to that. So, you talked about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. You mentioned conditioned patterns, and that's something that I've realized in my own personal life because I grew up going to church, and I grew up with certain expectations of how church was and God and just all this different stuff. And then I fell away from God, and then came back to God and different things in my 20s, and then I was like plugged back into like a very conservative church. So over the last several years, I've just realized, like, in life, we are conditioned to think a certain way, speak a certain way, live a certain way, and I see the majority of human beings on this earth, they just continue in the direction that they've been conditioned to go in. And I see a lot of people in our world that are just going through the motions of life because they don't know who they are, they don't know their purpose, they don't know what their passion is, and they basically are living unfulfilled, unsatisfying, wasted lives in my viewpoint and in my estimation. Yeah. So would you just maybe explain and break down a little bit more, Shannon, what conditioned patterns are? Like, what does that mean? And just give a little context behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, kind of like I mentioned earlier, we're all conditioned, right? Like you mentioned too, and it starts when we're really, really young. And the unfortunate thing is that not all of our conditioning is empowering. Right? And so if you just look at what some of the thoughts that you're having repetitively are, what some of the beliefs you hold are, what some of the feelings you have about yourself and the world are, well, looking at that right there, that is your conditioning. And so the beautiful thing is it's changeable. It's changeable. But a lot of people, like you mentioned, they're just living prey to their early on childhood conditioning. And they're not really willing to look at it and question it and change it and do the processes and the steps it takes to step out of that mold and create differently. And so some like really, really easy kind of, I guess, what would it be, like a tool I can give right now is like, and what I talk to my clients about, because a lot of people, it's like we have these beliefs that like, oh, I could never make that much money, or I could never love my body like that woman does, or I could never be in that relationship, or like, oh, I meant to stay in this job for 5 years and get this bonus, and like maybe then I can do my dream, or whatever it is, right? There's these limitations. And so what I ask women and people is like, okay, how does that feel? And if it feels shitty, if it feels bad, then it's probably not really in alignment with your soul and your truth. Right? And then we ask about, okay, like, what is it you desire? Your individual desires, and everyone's desires is unique, and that's what's so awesome, right? So it's like, okay, so what would it feel like? I ask women, like, how do you want to feel in your body? Because a lot of the work always comes back to body and a woman's relationship with her body. And so if she says comfortable or connected or empowered or confident or whatever she says, I'm like, okay, how does that feel? And she's like, well, that would feel amazing. And I'm like, great. Well, if it feels good and it feels amazing, it's probably a good belief for you. Right? And so like it's the same thing when we think about what would it feel like for you if it's someone who's like miserable at work and they think like, oh, I've got to stay in this job because, that's the path I have to take, and that's what people have to do in our society is get the health benefits and stay in this secure job and work for this many years before I can like save up this much money to then finally quit, and then do I want what I want? That's a lot of what I see people doing, which drives me nutso. But it's like, okay, how does that feel? And they're like, well, it feels awful. It feels miserable. I hate my life. I don't want to go to this 9-to-5 job that I don't like. Like, it's not bringing me fulfillment. I want to do this or want to do that, but like I could never do that. I'm like, well, what does it feel like to tell yourself I could never do that? And they're like, well, it just feels like I feel stuck. I feel this. And a lot of times I'll tell people like, tap into your body right now. How does it feel in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? And people will say like, I feel it in my stomach. I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my throat. It feels stuck. It feels closed. And I'm like, okay. So if it feels bad, let's ditch it. Right? It's
Yeah,
like it can be
that's
that
good.
simple. And then
For
it's
sure.
like, okay, so let's think of something else. And then, you know, if it's a dream they have or a desire they have or something that they are looking for to create in their life, I'm like, okay, how does that feel? And they're like, that feels really expansive in my heart. It feels really exciting. It feels really open. Okay, if it feels good, let's create it. Let's move towards it. Let's adopt that as a belief. Right? And so I think it can become that simple of like, okay, we've got all this conditioning. And if it's a conditioning or a belief that you're holding or a story that you're telling yourself and it feels bad, you have the power and ability to let it go. Is it easy? No, it's not easy.
Right.
I'm not going to be like, oh, it's so easy. Just like, you know, let it go. No, it's difficult, right? Because you've been repeating that for a while now.
Right.
But is it possible? Yes, it's so possible. It is so possible.
So, okay, so let's say somebody realizes that they have these conditioned patterns and you know that type of stuff going on in their life and they have they're experiencing these feelings like, you know, like stuck, whatever you want to throw out there. So what's the first step for somebody that is starting to have this awakening in their life to break these conditioned patterns? Like right now when they get done listening to this podcast, what's like the first actionable step that they can do to begin to break, let's just say, one conditioned pattern that they are realizing is in their life?
Okay, so the first step on the path that I have people do, it's a game I call Observation Queen.
Okay.
And you can call it Observation King, you can call it whatever you want. Observation. I call it Observation Queen because it's fun, because it gives the analogy of like, you're removing yourself from the story and you're being like this queen observing the patterns and the thoughts and the behaviors. And you're not doing it with judgment, right? So it's like you can think of like a queen or a king and they're observing what's going on, the chaos, the trouble, this. And if they're an intelligent, empowered queen, they're not going to sit there and judge everything. They're going to look at it with neutrality and then they're going to move forward with an empowered decision.
Okay.
Right? If you think of any kind of leader who is a good, solid, balanced leader. So I can think of like Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Right? He's not reacting quick and like blah, blah, blah. He's sitting back and making a wise, empowered decision.
in contrast to the current president, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. Yeah. There we go. So
we'll just leave that out in the
So think about someone like that. And so that's really what I want you to do. It's like you play Observation Queen, and then I have everyone get a journal and just start to write it down.
Yep.
Start to write down and again, this will take you a few days. I give women up to 3 weeks to really work with this exercise, but I think that is the first step of like awareness of, okay, anything that doesn't feel good, anything that feels disempowering, any thoughts that are negative that I don't want to be having about myself, about my body, about my job, about money, about relationships, about what I'm capable of, self-talk.
Yeah.
Write it down. And then after like 1, 2, 3 weeks of that, you're going to start getting really aware of what are the patterns,
Absolutely.
What are the conditionings, and then it's all there for you. That's the first step.
Cool. Okay, so in regards to, like, I have this little thing that I say is like you think it, you write it, you speak it, and then you go out and you live it. So I want to talk about, Shannon, a little bit about the importance of, the thoughts that we have, and then right in alignment with what you're talking about with the Observation Queen kind of practice or whatever exercise is, you just talked about writing things down. So like part of my morning routine is I have like 3 sections of a notebook, and I write certain words or phrases, what have you, or some things that I want to see come to fruition in my life. I write those down. And like I know the power of the written word, and then I also know the power of the spoken word, and then I also know the power of, if not now, when, like just going out and chasing after your dreams and things of that nature. So is that something, the thinking, writing, speaking, and living, is that something that you would align with and agree with? And if so, just maybe share a little bit more about that, how you've seen that in that power in your life with those things.
Oh, 1001%. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's so powerful. That's a creation process.
Yeah.
And actually that's exactly what's outlined in Conversations with God.
Oh,
That's like the process that's outlined. That
Perfect.
is so empowering.
Okay.
It's the thoughts, it's your words, and it's your aligned actions and your energy, right? And that is the process of creation. And so I can give you a perfect example of an exercise I take every single one of my clients and women through in my programs, and I also do in my own life, is that process of, it's this beautiful process of like writing yourself a letter in the future. And I always have people do like 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year at most. I don't have people do like crazy big visions, because I think that can I think it's great, but I think for some people it can feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes. Yes. And so it's like, yes, have the beautiful big vision, and let's start with 6 months, and let's start with a year. Let's start with this much time. And so I have people vision for themselves, okay, 6 months from now, where do you want to be? What do you want to create? How do you want to feel in your life? And so they create that vision, and then essentially they write it down as if it's already happening. And so they flash back, okay, they pretend they're 6 months from now, and they've done a lot of inner work. They've taken scary action. They've done the stuff they need to do to start loving themselves and their bodies and living the lives that they desire and going after their dreams. Where are they? What are they thinking about themselves? What words are they saying? How do they feel? What are they doing? And they write it in the present tense, right? So it's like, I am doing this. Like for you and your podcast, it could be like, my podcast is now like this number on iTunes. I've got this many listeners. Like, I don't know if you even know this stuff, but like... but it's
well, I mean, a little bit, but I don't keep track.
But it's like, oh, I've had this many interviews, or like whatever your dreams are with your podcast, right? So you write it all down in like detailed description. You write it. And then what I have women do is like they write it out and then they share it with me, right? They speak it out.
Absolutely.
So in our sessions, it's like, I'm like, okay, great, you wrote your letter, share it. And they're like, now in front of you. I'm like, yep. And so I'll have them share it. And then if the first time they share it and they're kind of like, your voice is kind of quavery, you're kind of questioning yourself, you're kind of this. I'm like, okay, great. Now we'll do something where we'll dance or we'll shake out some energy, kind of like move through some of that fear. And then it's like, now I want you to share it again and share it with just more emotion and energy behind it. Because our emotions, charge those words.
Yep.
And so then they'll share it like that. Great. Every time you repeat it, it's going to be more and more powerful. So then it's working with that vision. And like you said, it's like every day you could rewrite the vision. You could read the vision in your head. You could read it out loud. You could visualize some aspect of the vision. And then third step is, okay, great. Right now, what is one aligned action you could take towards creating and making that vision true for yourself?
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as like, I'm going to go and drink some filtered water because I want to be healthy in my vision. Right? Yep. It's like, it doesn't have to be this massive thing, or like, I'm going to choose, if health is a vision, I'm going to go and buy myself some organic produce, or I'm going to go to yoga, or for you, I'm going to go reach out to that person and schedule that interview. Or for me, I'm going to, connect with 10 people and build connections today. It's like the micro day to day is the magic. And so it's just really, really opening up your mind to like, what is an aligned action I could take in this moment or today that would help me be the person to make that vision happen for myself.
Yeah, I like it. That's good stuff, because that's right in alignment with where I'm at in my life. Is like, I have like a grand vision and these different goals, and I don't know necessarily how it's all going to come together, and I don't think we need to know that. But I have the vision. I know what steps I have to take to move in that direction. And again, like it's like the finer details is unclear, but I know what I have to do, because I know if I just continue to move in that direction, some way, somehow, it's all going to come together, and we're going to get to that end goal or that end vision. So good stuff. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about like you and kind of your own journey, because obviously you've done that deep inner work, and you're continuing to do that deep inner work that a lot of people are scared to do because it's really uncomfortable. And you know who you are, you know what you're all about, you're pouring into other ladies' lives and things of that nature. So as much as you want to share, Shannon, like how did this journey kind of this awakening or enlightenment start for you, if you don't mind sharing that? Because like you've got a lot going on. Like, just it's really easy for me just to be around somebody for a short amount of time and kind of like grasp in the sense of like their level of deepness. And there's a lot of deepness with you, and there's a lot of there's just a lot going on in regards to, again, going back to like that inner work and everything. You know what I mean? Like there's a solid foundation. Most people that I interact with, they don't have a solid foundation. So how did that begin for you?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. How did it begin? So I want to tell people, like, I guess something just to start, that I really like to tell women, because, and this is something I'm just starting to even recognize, that oftentimes people see where someone's at, and they don't see all of the heartbreak and all of the insecurity and all of the struggles and all of the failures that they've had to navigate through to get there.
Absolutely.
And so what I like to tell every single woman is, like, the reason I am so passionate about the work I do and why I'm so committed to continuing to build my own foundation and continue to do my own work is because of, like, where I've been and of my journey. And so I just want every woman to know that it's possible.
Absolutely.
You know, like, it is possible for every woman to love themselves. It's possible for every woman to love their bodies. It's possible for every woman to feel whole within themselves and feel fulfilled from within. Like, it's so possible. And I tell women too, it's like, if I could do it and if I continue to do it, you can too. And so then to make that point, I guess, land a little bit more, it's like, like, my story is just a story of just an insecure girl, right? Who, I was too sensitive. I was too emotional. I was too fat. I was too this. I was too that. And that was, like, my stories my entire life. I think always just very worried about what everyone else is thinking of me.
Right. Yep.
Always in my head, very quiet, very shy, very insecure, lots of body judgment. And all of these stories just really set me up and fueled me for just a really poor relationship with my self-esteem, and a really poor relationship with my body, and a really poor relationship with food. And so I guess the first time I can remember just really feeling this, like, deep shame and embarrassment about my body and who I was like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember just looking at my body in the mirror, and I tell this story because it was just, like, this impactful moment in my life. But I remember being, like, really just always, like, very aware of, like, other women's bodies, like, at a really young age, and my friends who were smaller than me, and just you know, I grew up grew up with, like, some examples in my life of just not women who are very loving and supportive of their bodies,
right,
and of other women. And I grew up around that, and I'll just put it that way. And so I just grew up with that. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror at, like, 7 or 8 years old. I just got out of a shower, and it's not funny, but I remember, like, looking at myself, and I remember, like, pulling the flesh away from my arm and being like, oh my gosh, that's fat. Like, I remember my mom would tell me, you're just bigger bone, Shannon. And I was like, that's fat. And I remember standing there with myself, and just being so embarrassed and being so ashamed. And in that moment, and probably in moments before, creating this story of, like, oh my gosh, you're fat and you need to be ashamed of yourself, and there's something wrong with you, and you're not good enough, and just, like, all of it. And I was, like, so angry and so embarrassed and so ashamed, and I didn't know what to do, and so I just internalized it. Right? I didn't go to my mom, I didn't go to my dad.
Right.
I just like shoved that motion into my body, and then I just lived that story throughout middle school, throughout high school, into college, and that kind of story that, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with you. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be embarrassed about yourself. Just really, like, trickled its way into all these areas of my life. And I remember in college, I needed something to control, or no, in high school, I needed something to control. So I spiraled into an eating disorder, into over-exercising. I got super, super thin. I had to go to Children's Hospital. I had to see therapists. I felt as though if I was smaller, then I would be more lovable.
Yep.
I would be better. I would win back the love of like the boyfriend that cheated on me.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy now to reflect on, but really that was a lot of my life, and it was just always, you know, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be embarrassed about who you are. Other people are better than you. Other women are better than you. You're not good enough. Whew. And this kind of carried with me. Eventually in college, I started to get really into health, started to trickle into using food as medicine, my relationship with food and body started to get better, but I was still fueling myself again, which I talk about those subconscious patterns of like, you are not good enough, Shannon. There's something wrong with you. That was my story. There is something wrong with you. And I remember I will forever, ever, ever be grateful for my just past recent relationship, because he looked at me in this way that no one had ever looked at me. And it was like this love that I had just never experienced. And I was just like, who is this person, this man, to look at me and love me when there's something wrong with me?
Right, yeah.
Like, I had that belief of like, no, you can't love me for who I am. There's literally something wrong with me. Why are you loving me like this? And it took that moment of just like, oh my gosh, there's this other being who is really loving me, and I haven't changed anything. I haven't done anything. He's seen all these weird parts of me, and he's loving me. And it was that moment of realizing, like, I want to look at myself that way. And it was like, he can look at me that way, and it's amazing, and it's wonderful, but I want to look at myself that way. I want to have that love for myself. And so then this spirals me into another moment. I was like standing on the beach, and I like looked out into the ocean, and I was like, I am going to learn how to love myself. Right? It's that moment. I was just like you're awakening. I was like, like Garrett is my ex-boyfriend. I was like, how he looks at me, I'm going to learn how to look at myself that way. Right. And I'm going to learn how to love myself that way. And that is what I want for myself in my life. And I was like, it was literally this moment. I journaled about it. I was like, I'm going to learn how to love myself, and I'm going to teach other women how to do the same. Because again, growing up in this household, I've seen the same patterns, the same insecurities, the same limiting beliefs in both of my sisters, in all of my friends, in all of the women I connect with. It's like we're all holding these things that we don't have to hold. And so again, that kind of led me into like this journey of just cracking open, of reading books, listening to podcasts, working with mentors, working with therapists, really doing that work of like, all right, I'm committed. Yeah. I made the decision. For me, it's like, I just need to make a decision, and it's like, boom, for me. I make these unwavering decisions, and I just made it. I just made the decision, and I've been committing to it, and it's been so hard sometimes, but it's been so amazing sometimes. And like, the thing is, yesterday, like every day, like I look at myself that way. Yeah. You know, like I do. I look at myself, and I'm like, I literally love myself so much, and I love who I was, and I love who I am, and I love who I'm becoming, and I want everyone to get an experience of that. I really do. And so, am I perfect? No. Do I have an inner mean girl? Yes. Do I have things come up all the time? But I love myself, and there's so much freedom and beauty and power in that.
So, a question that I have is, what do you, from your perspective and your experience in interacting with women, what is the greatest hurdle for an individual to overcome in regards to having this awakening or experiencing the need to love yourself so that you can reach your greatest potential as a human being?
The biggest hurdle?
Yeah, like, so what is that hurdle, or what is that obstacle that is stopping so many individuals, and I'm just gonna say women because that's who you work with, but it's men as well. But what's that hurdle or the obstacle, the greatest one that's causing so many human beings not to do this inner work so that they can reach their greatest potential? Because it goes back to our earlier conversations, a lot of my observations of 99.9% of people on the face of this earth are just going through the motions. So what is stopping more human beings from actually realizing some of the things that you've realized so that they can also have a great impact on other people's lives in the world?
Yeah. So it boils down to fear.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely. And what I'll say is that a lot of people are more committed to their struggle and to being safe and to being comfortable and to suffering than they are committed to their growth, to their vision, to stepping outside of their comfort zone and doing the uncomfortable, scary, unknown things. They're just more committed to a false sense of security and safety, which is the struggle and the suffering.
Right. And that's one thing actually I had written down previously to our conversation is the importance of always getting uncomfortable. So why don't you just talk about that a little bit, Shan? Like, and I'm not even, we can expand outside of just talking about like kind of doing that inner work, but like, you know, I know people do the cold showers, cold plunges. People do, you know, these crazy ultra runs and you know, just in general. It doesn't even have to be like in the physical realm, but like, what's the importance of pursuing the uncomfortable every day in regards to growth and maturity as a human being?
You've got to get a good relationship with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why though? For the listener, like I mean,
I know.
I get it. You know, I get it. But why? Like somebody's like why are they talking about being uncomfortable? Because everything in our culture in the United States of America is fast, easy, comfortable. Just build your little world. So it's bubble wrapped. And that's as a teacher. I'm going to try not to get too fired up here, but as a teacher. The students are bubble wrapped. They got the helicopter parents. I mean, it's so nuts. Like, we are setting up our kids, and adults are setting up their kids, and adults are setting up their lives for failure because they are trying to avoid the uncomfortable. They are trying to live protected, but that's not the reality of life. And for me, growth and maturity only will happen through discomfort. Through stepping outside of that comfort zone, because growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. No. So maybe just taking that a little bit and running with it, if you don't mind. You don't mind. Yeah,
absolutely. So yes, the thing is, and I can add to what you're saying because I agree with it 1,000%. How I like to, I guess, give lots of analogies and examples for people, and something I tell people is that, like, basically, like, you have, it's this idea of, like, you've got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Right, yeah.
Because right now, you are living in your comfort zone, right? And that's where we all have these comfort zones. And so you can think of it as a bubble or a circle around us of the things that they don't really, like, you know, do much. It's like going to the grocery store, go to, like, typical, right? Yeah. Maybe for some people, going to the gym is uncomfortable, but typical, it's like, okay, go to the grocery store, hang out with certain relationships, go to the gym. Like, there's certain things that are just so in our comfort zone, so normal, you don't think about it, you don't get scared about it.
Right.
So that's your comfort zone right there. And now, if you want to grow and expand, you've got to expand that bubble around you in order to include other things into it.
Right.
Now, the edge, right, where that comfort zone expands is uncomfortable. That's the discomfort. That's the unsettlingness. That is the going and hanging out with people socially if you're worried or anxious about what they're going to think of you, right? That's asking for a little bit more money at work. That's you putting your business out there. That's you deciding to wear a certain clothing item that, like, maybe you're scared about what people are going to think about your body when you do it, right? There's so many different things. But in those actions, they're outside of your comfort zone. And so the gap right there between staying in your bubble versus opening up this fence, expanding it, is going to be uncomfortable every single time.
Right.
Now, the beauty is eventually that thing, that action becomes more and more and more and more comfortable. Now it's in your comfort zone. And now you realize, okay, cool, things are good. And now it's time to expand again. Yes. And so with this process of expansion, you are always feeling into something that's like, ooh, that's a little uncomfortable. Like, ooh, oh, right? Like you mentioned earlier, it's like you got to have that positive self-talk to move through it.
Right.
But if you want to be continuously growing and expanding and you want to be growth-minded versus closed-minded,
right,
then you've got to be feeling into it and being like, okay, yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that. Let's do it and keep doing it consistently until it feels comfortable. and then what's next, and then what's next, and then what's next, and that's the evolution and the growth and the unlayering of a person.
Yeah, and I think like we all have fears and anxieties, and when you step outside of the comfort zone and you attack those fears and attack those anxieties, like the word attack is just like my personal
yeah,
word,
I get it.
Everybody like you're going towards those fears and those anxieties, and once you do that and it's very uncomfortable and you realize that you can do it, you're breaking fears, you're breaking anxieties, you're breaking barriers that have been there since the day you were born, going back to like those conditioned patterns. So once we realize that we can step outside of that comfort zone and attack or go against those conditioned patterns, those fears and those anxieties, we grow mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually stronger, and then I believe we're moving closer to reaching our full potential as a human being. But if we stay in the comfort zone, then we will never reach that full potential, because full potential as a human being, reaching that and attaining that only comes through growth, and growth only happens through the uncomfortable. Is that kind of like go right on with what you're saying? Kind of just that. I like that word breaking, like breaking, because we're all wrapped in chains of some sort, whether that's anxiety or fear or what have you, or that negative self-talk. Like we're all wrapped in chains. But once we attack or we move in that direction of those fears, those anxieties, that negative self-talk, and realize that we can overcome that, and that stuff doesn't have any power, chains are broken, barriers are broken, and then we're free. And we're moving in that direction of full potential. So, all right, good stuff. Now, all right, so in regards to females, because again, that's what those are your clients, and that's what your focus is. What do you see, generally speaking, what is the greatest struggle for most women in regards to, like, maybe it's like body image or relationship stuff? They don't feel sufficient. I mean, I'm just throwing out some stuff because I'm a dude, and I know like my insecurities and my struggles, and I'm around guys a lot more than chicks, but just generally speaking, like if let's say 20 women come to you, what's going to be kind of like maybe that one thing that the majority of them are really going to be struggling with, and that you kind of have to work through to have them overcome?
Oh man, I mean, there's layers to it. I'm gonna give 3 things.
Okay.
First thing is the inner mean girl, the inner critic, that dialogue, the stories, the BS that is not serving her really loving herself, believing in herself. Second is her relationship with her body. Because I always go back to that, because a woman's relationship with her body is really, really a mirror to how big or small she's playing in her life. And if a woman feels uncomfortable in her body, who feels disconnected, who feels shame, who feels judgment in her body, then that is trickling into every single area of her life. And then the third is worrying about what other people think about her.
Yep. Okay, so we've been going for almost an hour, so we'll have to start winding things down. But before we do, I want to talk about relationships, and specifically toxic relationships. And that can be in the context of like friends, just like the general group of people you're hanging out with. That can also be, like intimate partner relationships, because again, just 31 years on this earth and observing human beings, I see a lot of people. They get sucked into toxic relationships, and they continue to stay in those toxic relationships to their detriment. You know what I mean? And I think we can all maybe think about somebody that's in a relationship, an intimate relationship, or boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, husband-wife relationship, and one of them is getting like physically abused, and we always wonder why that person stays in that relationship. And there's a lot to that, but that's kind of similar. I mean, that's that toxic relationship. I'm not specifically talking about like that physical abuse or anything like that, but just in general, like people are in these groups or in these relationships that are very toxic for them. So would you just speak on that and kind of like some of your experience of helping females remove themselves out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many layers to that, right? And I think something that's coming through to me right now is as humans, as souls, we crave connection.
Right.
All right. It's like, I mean, it's something I deeply crave. It's something every single human craves, is just connection with other humans. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes we will prioritize just connection over amazing, loving, supportive connection, right? And so if somehow a woman's need for connection is being met in a relationship, even if it's a toxic one, she might stay, right? Or if a need for safety is being met, or some type of primal need around safety, around connection, around feeling supported, if something somehow in there is being met, oftentimes we will really stay in these relationships, even though at like a soul level they are just not serving us. They're toxic, they're negative, they are just mentally, physically, emotionally not serving us. Right. And so I think oftentimes what I would say and speak to that is, it's like there's so many elements to it, but just recognizing like, okay, there's something here, there's some need, there's some primal need that's being met, and trusting that it can be met in a much more fulfilling, healthy way, and recognizing that you are safe, you are worthy of creating different connections, of receiving support. I think oftentimes it only really takes one healthy relationship, one supportive, healthy, loving relationship to be able to break a toxic one, right? And so it's really finding that for yourself, and whether that is through a therapist, a coach, a mentor, a best friend, a parent, a sister, a sibling. It's like finding one relationship that's going to be healthy, that's going to help give you that connection while you break the ties of the toxicity. And then once you do that, it's really unlayering, right? And building this beautiful, loving relationship with yourself, where you know that you're worthy of building the connections and the healthy relationships that you are worthy of, that are a birthright for you, that can happen for you. But right. I think it is like recognizing there's nothing wrong with you, right? You're not weak, you're not horrible, you're not whatever, but you're a human being who wants to be loved, who wants to connect with some other human being, and who wants to feel safe and supported and validated and all the things every single human wants to feel, and she can get that another way. Right.
So just quickly, and we're just going to stick to like two, if because when you're in the darkness, it's really hard to see. Yeah. And usually it's people from the outside that have to kind of like say, hey, like something's up here. So what are like two signs of somebody being in a toxic relationship that they can kind of like if they're listening to this and you're going to share these two things, they can be like, well, both of those are in this relationship that I'm in, and maybe I need to look at this relationship differently. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. So I might trigger some people, but I think everyone knows. Okay. I think deep down, no matter how dark of a place you're in, you know if you're in a toxic relationship. There is a part of you that knows. And that's the part of you, like if I'm talking to someone right now and you're in a toxic relationship, that's the part of you I'm speaking to you right now. You know you're in one. Right. And potentially me saying that is triggering the crap out of you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so I think at that point, it's like there is a piece of you that knows, and I think that piece of you is really related to your soul and your intuition. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is get some space from it, right? And like sit down with yourself and just get some space. I think go sit in your bedroom, find somewhere where you can just be by yourself and ask yourself, does this, and it comes down to what we talked about at the beginning of the call, does this relationship make me feel good or bad? What comes up right away? Is it good? Is it bad? If it's bad, there's some toxicity there. And you don't have to question it. Right. You literally don't have to question it. So just start really simply. Because then you can go get deeper, right? And unpack it. But it's like, does this relationship make me feel good or bad? Boom. What's your answer? Don't think about it. Don't overthink it. Good? Okay, cool. Let's look into that deeper. What is it about this person I like? What do they, instill? What are their qualities? Whatever. Bad? okay, let's look deeper, right? But I think starting there is like, one, you can start to trust like that deeper knowing within you, and then just ask yourself really simply, get some space, go into a bathroom, go into a room, go in your car, get some space, and just ask yourself, I'm going to be honest with myself, does this relationship make me feel good or bad? Bad? Okay, there's some toxicity, let's look at it deeper.
Beautiful. Okay, so just two more things, and then we're gonna wrap things up. So I know that you're involved with something with a previous guest on the podcast called She Hikes. Yeah. So I want to, because I think it's really cool, and I know that there's gonna be some ladies in this Denver area that are gonna be listening to this, and really finding value in what you've shared. And so I just want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about She Hikes, what it is, when it is, and who it's for.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my friend Jess and I, she was on the podcast. So She Hikes is, we were kind of just hanging out one night, chatting, and we're talking about how we want to be hiking more, doing all this stuff. And then it just like, all of a sudden this idea of She Hikes was birthed because we were also wanting to build a better kind of positive community and tribe here locally in Denver, because both of our businesses are online.
Yeah.
And so, you hear about women's circles, you hear about all these things, and I was like, what if we did like a hiking version of a women's circle?
Yeah.
And not only did we create this space for women to just connect, like we talk about toxic relationships, it's like the opposite of that, because I think a lot of women are in toxic relationships, whether that's friendships or partnerships. And so I was like, I want this space where women can just talk, not in a place to complain about their problems. Like, no woman is going to come and just complain. That's not the space I'm creating. Not to vent, not to just like stay in the negative cycles, but to express from a place of like, hey, this is a story I have, or this is what's going on in my life, or this is what I'm struggling with, or this or that, but like, and I want some support. I want some connection. I want some growth. I want some tools. And so women who are ready and willing to like, again, connect, talk about meaningful topics. We talk about like inner critic, body image. We talk about manifestation, about money, about all sorts of just empowering topics that women are curious about, spirituality. And so again, it's like a women's circle hike. So we meet, we go on a hike, we come up to the top, and then Jess leads everyone through some breathing exercises, and then my magic really is in leading women in these like guided meditation experiences. Mm-hmm. And so I do a guided meditation around the topic. We have women partner up and talk about different questions. We share, we give them tools. Again, every single hike is just themed, but again, it's like this beautiful women's circle, but like woven in with some like spiritual and personal development too.
Cool. So, if I remember right from kind of reading the write-up on Instagram, it's is it once a month on a Sunday?
Yeah, once a month, the first Sunday of every month up until, we'll do it like through the summer. So first Sunday of every month. The next one's this upcoming Sunday. I don't know when this will air, but June 2nd is the next one. The next one will be first Sunday in July. It's like 10 a.m. to 12:30. They're completely free.
Yeah.
We just ask that any woman who does grab a ticket, she's committed to coming because they're free. We don't want someone to just sign up and grab a ticket and then not show up. That's a little bit annoying, if I'm going to be honest. So if someone's wanting to be a part of it, it's like, yeah, it's free. We don't want you to, have to pay to go on a hike. It's just a way to build a community and share gifts with women in Denver. But yeah, it's an hour. It's 2.5 hours. Hikes are close to Denver. There's an online event. We sent out an email like 2 days before, sharing all the details.
How does if a lady's listening to this, where do they need to go? Is it your Instagram? Is there a website? Where do they go to get the tickets or get more information? Yeah,
go to either my Instagram, Shannon Keating, or Jess's, Jess Pure Living. I think it's in our links in our bios. It's just like an Eventbrite. Yeah. She hikes. Yeah.
Okay. So last question: what sets your soul on fire?
Oh, connection.
Connection? Mm-hmm. Okay. Like group connection?
Just like this.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I'm a big introvert, and I love like small group or person-to-person connection. I love it.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I'm very introverted, and I like to like stick to my thing, but it's very, very healthy for me, I realize, to have that connection, that interaction with another human being, because like that's the way we're put together. But like once I get like connected with somebody, like that's why I love the podcast thing so much, Shannon, is because like it's that human interaction. And there's always a starting point of like health, fitness, and things like that, which is like really my jam. Mm-hmm. So like we kind of start there, but then like today we're talking about relationships and we're talking about all kinds of awesome stuff. And even though we're talking about female stuff, like I'm learning, you know what I mean? I'm like you're talking to the guests, but you're also talking to me. You're teaching the guests. You're teaching me, and there's just something really powerful about that human. Like I really like one-on-one more so than groups, because the group thing kind of like that like really stirs up a lot of anxiety. Which even as I'm saying that, I should probably get more out of the comfort zone and be around more people. But a good starting point for me is like just one-on-one. But yeah, connection is very powerful. So all right, Shannon, I just want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day today, just to again share and teach myself and the listeners. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and learn more about you and your coaching and everything that you have going on in regards to your business, where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say the best place, I guess 2 great places right now. I'm kind of in the midst of revamping my website. So 2 great places are on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is just my name at Shannon Keating. Facebook, I run an amazing Facebook community where I do tons of weekly live trainings, free giveaways, all sorts of good stuff, and that's Unmasked Women on Facebook.
Okay, cool, very cool. All right, so listeners, I just want to thank you so much again for hanging out with myself and Shannon today on the 127 Fit podcast. If you guys want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram, and that's at 127 Fitness. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. And if you guys would do me a huge favor, please like, subscribe, share, and then most importantly, leave a 5-star review on the iTunes app if you're listening to the podcast through that app. And then if you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a few people in mind that you think would be a great guest for the 127 Fit podcast, you can send me an email and just share a little bit about yourself or your friends, or pass this email on to your friends, and they can just go ahead and feel free to email me. That email is 127fit@gmail.com. And if you guys are finding great value in this podcast and the guests that I'm having on the podcast, I would just ask that you guys would start sharing it on your Instagram stories and Facebook and things of that nature. And if you guys would just start using the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow, that would be really cool to see some of the positivity that you guys are gaining through the podcast and the guests. And per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.